say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. We will, first of all, take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for allowing this transmission to occur in this manner on this day. Once again, each and every time this is co-created between our respective civilizations, it forms a stronger link, a stronger bridge between your world and our world, and what we have called the association of many worlds. So we thank you for the opportunity to strengthen that link, strengthen that bridge upon which we can one day cross to meet each other in the middle. And that day is not too far away as you count time on your planet. Toward that end of accelerating and strengthening the time of contact between our worlds, we once again invite you to explore your own inner world more deeply. For the more that you learn who you are, then the better it will be in the sense of being your full self, certainly more of your full self when we meet, so that we will know more of who you are, and that you will know more of who you are when you meet us. For we will come to you as fully as we can. And if you are, thus then at that point, not coming to us as fully as you can, we want to make sure that this will not be detrimental for you. So we help to prepare you to discover more of yourself, to explore more of your own universe, so that you can be more integrated, more holistic, more empowered, more creative, more loving, more alive, and that you will know more definitively who and what you are when we meet. Now, we have set up this particular transmission for the idea of discussing what is euphemistically called in your language your soul blueprint. What this generally means is that when you choose to be physical, as many of you know, you will come into physical reality with a general theme that you have decided to play out. It does not always mean that you decide every single moment of your life, or that you are destined to only do certain things. That is not what the soul blueprint means. Although you can create some specific incidents, events, encounters in your life. You can design them, set them up ahead of time for that to come to fruition. You can do that, and sometimes do that. But not every moment, far from it, is laid out ahead of time. You leave yourself an opening throughout your life to make changes as you go, depending upon how much you learn, how much you recognize, how much you realize, how much you integrate. You leave yourself the opportunity at every moment to take the new information and decide where you wish to go, what you wish to do with it, what you want your life to be from that moment forward. The general theme you may have set up for yourself prior to this life will be played out, but the theme is so general that it does not in any way, shape, or form restrict you or limit you in terms of the multitude of the kinds of ways in which you could express or experience that theme. And especially now, at this time upon your planet, many of the themes that you are exploring in these lives are all about waking up to the fact that you have the freedom to choose what you want your life to be, how you want to experience it. Now, we remind you once again that the most important perspective, the most important attitude to have toward your physical reality experience is not to look at how you are doing based on what's going on out there, but how you are doing based on how you respond to whatever's going on out there, no matter what it is. Always remember, there is no out there. There is only here. There is only you. Physical reality is an illusion, a mirror, a reflection. You can use it as a tool in some senses to reflect what is going on within you, what your beliefs are, what your thoughts are, what your emotions are, what your attitudes are, what your definitions are. You can use physical reality as a reflection, but it is not the first step in gauging whether or not you have made a change. The first step in knowing that you have changed is that you respond differently than you used to a situation that may look the same as it did before. As we have said, all situations and all circumstances do not have built-in meaning, and they can serve double duty. The meaning you give it is the effect you get from it. So the first step in knowing your reality has changed is in knowing you have changed with respect to your experience of reality, even if it looks the same as it did before. If you can then respond differently to that reality than you did before, then you know the change is real, the change is within you, the change is owned by you. And when you respond differently than you did before, in a manner that is more of your preference, then, and only then, does your physical reality truly begin to reflect that change in other ways. But remember, it doesn't have to necessarily look much different. The key is whether or not you are getting a different effect in your life than you did before. Because the very same situation with all the same props and all the same people behaving all the same way as they did before can still allow you to generate a completely different outcome, a completely different effect, a completely different energy than you did before, just by the fact that you are relating to the situation differently. Because you say you have changed and will respond differently. Because you are now not the same person that you were before. Literally. When outer reality needs to look different, it will, as a reflection of the change. Whatever part of the change it needs to reflect differently, it will. But don't go off the outer reflection. Always go off your response. That will determine the difference. And that will determine the outcome. And that will determine the effect. Now, this personality idea that we have discussed many times, and which we will discuss in greater detail this time, is only your outer focusing device. Your personality is really nothing more than a window or a prism through which your consciousness creates the experience called physical reality. Now that experience is, of course, actually only taking place within you. Again, there is no outside. Nothing out there. Nothing. Just a reflection. Just as there is nothing itself of the image in the mirror, you understand there is really nothing of reality outside you. It is all taking place within your consciousness. But what the personality allows itself to perceive is often built upon not only the beliefs and definitions you have been taught in life to hold most true, to buy into most strongly, but also based upon what is technically called the soul blueprint. What you brought into this life, in a sense, as a theme to explore. So you will always look at everything that happens through the personality. You will always look at everything through that general theme. You will experience it through that general theme. When you choose to be physical and go from a non-physical state into a physical state, in a sense what you do is a kind of crystallization. It's like going from being steam to being water to being ice. You freeze yourselves in a type of pattern. This pattern then is referred to as the soul blueprint. What you brought in with you in general, that you will explore in this life. Now, many of you have similar themes, as we said, in this life, because you're all exploring the ability to be aware and awake of the fact that you are free to choose your reality experience. Whereas in your history, in the past, as you say, you were not aware that you had this choice, that you had this freedom. And even many of you alive on your planet today are unaware that you have this choice, that you have this freedom to choose your life to be what you wish it to be. Many people on your planet still believe that life happens to you instead of happening through you. But it does not happen to you. It comes from you and reflects back to you. And we will get into more understanding of that later on in this transmission when we discuss in depth what we have called the reality generation circuit. The actual mechanism, the circuitry by which you are manifesting your physical reality experience. But first, the blueprint. What is it exactly? What is it made of exactly? What goes into the recipe of your soul blueprint? You have been given some diagrams, some charts that help to illustrate and illuminate this concept. If you will look at the one that shows you the idea of your history, all the different pathways, all the different consciousnesses, all the different lifetimes, all the different experiences of what you call your past that you have brought to your present and will take with you into your future, you can see that you are, as a soul blueprint, shall we say, made up of quite a lot of different kinds of frequencies of energy. Quite a lot of different frequencies of experience. Many of you have begun to become aware in this life of your connections to other times, other places, other experiences, other lives, and so forth. And often wonder, how does this relate to this life? Now, a little bit of an aside before we continue with this. When we have discussions with many of you, often, many people will refer to the idea of these other connections by asking a question, "Oh, Bashar, where do I really come from?" Well, of course, the direct answer is to the person actually asking the question is, well, you really come from Earth, obviously, because that's where you are right now asking the question from. But we understand that when they ask the question, where do I really come from? Where do I originate from? We understand what you mean, but we wish to point out that you originate from everywhere, all at once and nowhere. Here and now is where you come from. But the idea is that when they ask, where do I originate from? What they're actually asking is this. What other places and times and lives and experiences am I strongly connecting to from this life? Because that's what you're actually doing. In any given life, because they all exist simultaneously, past, present, future, all exist now. All your so-called past lives are all going on right now with this one simultaneously, in much the same way that all the different programs on your television that you could watch at any given moment are all there at the same time, but you only get the one that your channel is tuned to at any given moment. So it is with this. So it is with the structure of existence. You, the you know yourself to be here on earth, are experiencing this earth life. Other variations of your consciousness are experiencing other lives in other places and other times now at the same moment. But they are separated by the fact that they are different frequencies, in much the same way that television and radio programs on your planet are separated by the fact that they are different frequencies. But they're all there at once. They all exist at the same time. But frequency and resonance is the key. So, from any life, in any life, you form attachments and connections to other lives going on simultaneously that have relevance to this life in terms of the kind of experiences that are being had in those other lives by those other versions of you. Because you know that the experiences they are having are relevant to some of the experiences that you may be having in this life, and, as you say, vice versa. From those lives, they may be tapping into other lives, including this one, from which they can draw upon your experiences. So, I'll give you an example. In a life that you may call a past life, you may be having a great deal of despair and hopelessness in a particular experience that you are having in that life. Then suddenly, for apparently no reason, hope and inspiration hits you, and you realize there is a way out of this. I do not have to lose hope. I can find my way through the dark to the light. And you don't know where that came from or why that hit you, but suddenly you just know things can get better. Well, sometimes that information, that knowledge, that certainty may have come from your guides, may have come from spirit, may have come from a variety of places, but it also may have come from an experience that you're having in another life that shows you there's a way out. Maybe coming from this life now, where you are exploring the idea that you have the freedom to choose your reality. And just that knowledge alone may leak into the other life, may be drawn upon by the other life to know, yes, there is a light at the end of this tunnel. Yes, I don't know where this knowledge comes from. I don't know where this certainty comes from. But I now know I'm not alone. I now know I can do what I need to do. And that inspiration may be coming from you. You may be sending that certainty with your experiences in this life to another of your lives to let them know that they can rely on your experience here and now to let them know they can improve their experience there and then. You are cross-connected to all your other lives, and the ones that stand out are the ones that have relevance for this life. And those are the ones that stand out energetically, vibrationally. Those are the ones that you often refer to when you ask the question, where do I come from? Where is my origin? The strong vibration Now, this also extends to the idea of other dimensions, other civilizations. Some of you say, well, I know I come from the Pleiades, or I come from Arcturus. Again, no. You come from Earth. You come from Earth. You may have lives going on in the Pleiadian systems, in the Arcturian systems, simultaneously, yes. Your oversoul, from which all your lives extend simultaneously, like the fingers on a hand. The oversoul may have lives going on Earth, in the Pleiadian systems, in the Arcturian systems, in the past, in the present, in the future, on different kinds of planets, in different kinds of dimensions all at once. So you don't come from there as if you were there and now you're here. That's an illusion, linearly. But you may sense, as you gain more and more awareness of who and what you are, and gather more information of the total self together, you may suddenly become aware of the fact that you have other lives in other places simultaneously. But because you're used to thinking in a linear before and after way, you may phrase the question, well, I must come from there because I'm not there now. And you put it in a linear framework. But all you're actually saying is you are awakening to the fact that you have cross connections to other things going on simultaneously and can draw upon that for whatever you wish to use that energy for in this life now. And so, getting in touch with the idea of your soul blueprint, this aspect of it, the recipe, the combination of all these different frequencies, of all these other experiences that are relevant to this life here on earth, is one strong way to get a handle, as you say, on exactly what your recipe is, where you are cross-connecting to, what kind of energies you are using in this life, in whatever manner you wish to use them, in whatever manner you wish to apply them. Being aware that you have connections to other realities like that is not about disconnecting from the earth, wishing that you could go back to that reality. No. The reason that you are where you are is because you chose to be where you are in order to act as a conduit to bring that energy to earth and manifest it in whatever way is relevant to the earth experience, to allow the earth to transform. Because every single one of you that are on earth now in some way, shape, or form chose to be on earth now because you knew that you would be going through a transition and a transformation at this time in your planet's history, and on some level, in some way, you wanted to participate. You wanted to be a part of that because it's a very exciting place to be right now. As you say in your language, it's where it's happening. It is one of the most highly focused places right now that we are aware of in creation for the idea of transition and transformation. It is one of the few places that has gone as deeply into the dark as you have, that we are aware of. And thus then, when a planet, when a civilization, when a collective consciousness can allow itself to experience such a great degree of darkness and yet still find its way to the light, that is special. That is powerful. And believe me, you attract the attention of many other beings from many other dimensions to see how you did it, how you're doing it, because that's exciting, because that's creation in the making. That's raw creation, going from absolute dark to absolute light. That's creation in a nutshell. So thank you for your strength, for your commitment, for your willingness to go through this transition. It's a powerful thing to have done, and it shows you, just by being where you are, it shows you how powerful you actually are. So never lose sight of that. To be where you are on earth at this time means you are powerful beings who knew what you were doing when you chose this reality, and even though you have forgotten that you knew what you were doing, you still know what you're doing. One of the ways you have allowed yourself to co-create a way to remember that you knew what you were doing is through your creation of us. Bringing an opportunity to you to remind you, which we are happy to do, to remind you of how powerful you are. So we thank you for the opportunity. We thank you for the gift you have bestowed upon us to allow us to be those that remind you who you are. Thank you for allowing us to be your alarm clock and help you wake up. Ding. Time to wake up. Time to be more aware of more of who you are so that you can, with open eyes and certainty, live your life with full conviction, responding as you want to. Responding as you prefer to, no matter what's going on in your reality. And getting the effect from that response that you deserve, that you now know you deserve to get. Regardless of what anyone else is doing, regardless of what anyone else's intention toward you may be, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. You matter. What you say matters. Becomes matter. Energy to matter. Non-physical to physical. The effect comes from your willingness to have the conviction to know your relationship to whatever you experience, whoever you experience, no matter the situation, no matter the circumstances. While you are on earth, for a while, you will still experience many people and many situations that are not reflective of your preference, because that's the nature of earth. Many people will make the assumption that just because they are changing themselves, they will suddenly no longer have to ever interact with anyone who is not of their frequency. No. You are still on the earth. It's still going to be a mix of things for a little while longer, but that's okay. It still gives you an opportunity to see in absolute example what you do and don't prefer. It always gives you a way to gauge where you're at relative to the things you see that you know are not who you are, who you prefer to be, who you prefer to deal with. So use that as an opportunity. Don't think there is something wrong just because, well, I've changed myself and I'm a more spiritual person, so why am I still getting people in my life that are not acting in a spiritual way? Shouldn't I be better than that? Shouldn't I be above that? Shouldn't I be beyond that? No! The idea, first of all, remember, is that you're on earth. That's what earth is all about. Polarity. Right now, it's still all about the idea of different examples of different ways of doing things, dark and light. And remember, the idea in integration is that you have something to integrate. If it's all just light, there's nothing to integrate. So, becoming more of yourself is also becoming more aware, not only of the light, but also of the dark. The more aware you become of the light and the dark choices, then the more you can choose openly and clearly what you prefer. It's not about excluding, it's about including. It's about knowing that you have choice still to go into the dark if you want to, but now it's knowing you don't have to. But that doesn't mean you won't see the dark choice. It means you'll become more aware of the dark choice. But now it means you become aware of the dark choice just as a choice, not as a given, not as an absolute, not as something that has more power over you, just as a neutral choice, like any other choice. It's just a choice. Hey, come into the dark. No thanks. Not because you're afraid, just because you know it's not your preference. It's just not your preference. But in order to know it's not your preference, you have to be aware that it's a choice you could still make, and you can make that choice at any time. If you couldn't make that choice, if you were not aware you had the choice to go into the dark, you would not be a fully empowered being to make a choice to go into the light. That's the whole point. So don't think something is wrong because suddenly you are still finding yourself interacting with people who are not of the vibration of integrity. It's giving you an opportunity to decide whether or not you still want to play that game, or whether you wish to make another choice. That's all right. They do not have any power to affect you as long as you do not agree to be affected. So that's why it's so important to respond differently, as if you have changed, no matter what's going on in the situation around you. And the way you get more in touch with the idea of who you are is by now beginning to really deeply understand your soul blueprint, what living this life is all about, what the theme is really all about, which is the freedom to choose no matter what. And allow yourself to move with conviction and commitment in that direction, but not in avoidance of anything. There is no avoiding. If you wish to grow and expand, you cannot avoid, because there is nowhere to avoid anything. There is nowhere to go. There is only here and now. You cannot run away from anything. You must invite it in and accept it as a part of who you are if you're really going to have the freedom to choose who you want to be. It's all about inclusion and integration, not exclusion and segregation anymore. That's the old pattern. That's not you anymore. If it was, we would not be having this conversation. So take that as a sign that it's time to know more of who you are. Be more of who you are and accept the dark and the light that you have and use it in a positive way. Just because you're aware of the dark doesn't mean you become the darkness. It just means you're aware of more of who you are, and that's a positive thing. That's a positive thing. So now, looking at this chart and looking at the idea, shall we say, of a soul path. I understand this is going to be in a somewhat linear framework, but it's easier to describe that way. Just understand that everything I'm saying coexists simultaneously right now. But nevertheless, for ease of discussion, look at the soul path through time on that chart. Starting with the idea simply of creation and the exploration, bit by bit, of specific themes as you consolidated and consolidated and consolidated and crystallized the family group of souls that you are in a more specific and more specific course of events. And having many lives in these different realities, different systems, experiencing and expressing yourself